Today is Monday, February 9th, 2016, and the title of this rant will be Marco Rubio's Wretched, Rehearsed Responses. So Rubio went in and had a whole heck of a lot of canned lines in there in the debates on Saturday night. Chris Christie took him to the woodshed and smacked him a few times, just like Reagan did with Stockman. In terms of the tax situation back then. And what I really want to talk about is that Rubio has been running around. Now, I haven't been paying great attention to this. I just noticed that he's very, very slick, let's just say. But in the last couple of weeks, we've been hearing this stuff that he has the same speeches, the same canned speeches everywhere he goes. He doesn't change them hardly a bit. He has the exact same canned responses whenever he's asked a question. And those canned responses basically are an exact repeat of what he said in his canned speeches. And that his handlers will only let certain people question him. And of course, with the knowledge, obviously, that they're only going to ask certain types of questions. So he's been running around. I won't use the term hibernating. He's been very protective for a long time. And it looks like it's going to bite him in the ass really bad. Now, let's just remember that the media created this guy. He got elected to the Senate. He was 38 years old, and automatically he was a presidential contender. He was young, he was handsome, he was new. I like to use the term that he was very glib, and he had been the head of the Senate in the State House in Florida, and of course he portrayed himself as some type of maverick, but you got to be an insider to be ahead of that, especially at that young age. So the question is, the media bought into all of this crap, and he's been running around doing the same stuff for the last 6 years because he's never done anything in the Senate. And the thing is, right now he's doubling down on his canned remarks, probably because his handlers are telling him this stuff is going to work. You just got to keep playing the game. It's like a baseball pitcher whose curveball isn't working. You got to keep throwing that curveball because it's going to work someday. Maybe it will work, maybe it won't. The big question is, will Marco Rubio actually have a second act? Will he get a second chance? Because like I said, he's doubling down on all of this. Now, my big thing about all this is that, like I mentioned, canned speeches, canned response, protected by his handlers, young, fresh, glib, really doesn't have a good sense of government and how it works because he never did anything in the Senate here. And what would have happened if Chris Christie hadn't have jumped in on all of that? Because he minced him. He made mincemeat out of him. And Rubio went back to his canned lines. And my particular point on all of this is that, in essence, here I am, I'm about 60 or so. If I was 60 back in 1960, what would I have thought of John Kennedy? Here was a guy John Kennedy, who was in World War II, or was injured in World War II, actually spent a year in the hospital in 1956, was a congressman, was a senator, wrote profiles in Courage. What would have I thought of him back in 1960? And remember, a lot of people were against Catholics back then too. What would I have thought of him? Because I really don't think much of Rubio at all. As far as I'm concerned, the media helped create him. I mean, he never should have been presidential material. And the other thing I'd like to point out is, he has a lot of backers. He has a lot of dark money. He's a lot smarter than me. And he's got a lot smarter than me people, backing him to the hilt. And what is it they see in him? And what they see in him, again, is what I had said. Young, fresh, handsome, glib, slick, got the great one-liners. But the big money that's behind him, they see, hey, this is a guy that will do our bidding. Meaning he will drop on a dime to do the bidding of the big money. And that's what politics is all about right now, is money. And profits. and less regulation and stop the environmental stuff. It reminds me of the book, The 10 Days That Shook the World or That Changed the World. Was written, I think the guy's name was John Reed. He was from Portland, Oregon, and he was out in St. Petersburg or Moscow in 1917 when the Russian Revolution happened. And in the movie Reds, which had Warren Beatty in it, they brought John Reed and went back to Portland, and he went to some big hub-to-do with all the big money people in Portland. They said, John, come up here and tell us about what this thing is all about. And he got up there and he looked at everyone. He had one word and he said, profits. And that's all I see in Marco Rubio, is he's doing the bidding of the big money strictly so they can increase profits. And he's also, he's playing the right-wing Pentecostal born-again positions also, because he needs their votes. But when the push comes to shove, he's siding with the big money, because that's where it's at.